Vetting rental applications is one of the most important things and most critical aspects of being a landlord and of the leasing process in general. My name is Sasha Struthers. I'm an attorney and broker in Los Angeles. I do a lot of these videos to help landlords try to navigate the whirlwind that is renting in predominantly California or in the United States. To get into it, there are 4 critical things that landlords either make a muck of or don't consider when they vet rental applications. One of the first things is there is federal laws that prohibit discrimination in the leasing process. Under the federal law, you cannot discriminate against a tenant or an applicant to be tenant based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, sexual orientation, and disability. And marital status has to deal with you can't discriminate against an applicant or tenant based on them being single, married, divorced, or separated. You cannot take those factors into consideration when considering their application. In California and a few other states, but I'm only going to talk about California, there are additional protected classes over and above what the federal law protects. Those are ancestry, citizenship, immigration status, primary language, gender, gender identity, gender expression, genetic information, familial status, meaning applicants that have children under the age of 18 or that are pregnant, source of income, military or veteran status, and age. Whenever you have an applicant, those things you have to virtually be blind to. If there's any one of those things that you don't like about the applicant, let's say you don't like that they have children, let's say that you don't like they're of a certain age, you cannot consider that as part of the leasing process. Another thing that landlords from time to time run amok of, either unintentionally or intentionally, is steering. So let's say you are a property management company or a landlord and you have a number of units available for rent in different areas. Maybe you have one in Santa Monica, maybe you have one in South LA, maybe you have one in Pasadena. You can't steer potential tenants or applicants away from or towards certain properties based on their characteristics. Now, let's say you have a rental unit and you think that based on the tenant, they might want a 2-bedroom rather than a 1-bedroom, and maybe a 2-bedroom is here and a 1-bedroom's over here. That's slightly different. If you're saying, you're looking at the application, you're seeing their income or their source of income, you're seeing that they have children, and you don't want them in a specific unit based on one of those protected classes, and you steer them towards another, maybe they're applying somewhere like in Pasadena and you want to steer them towards South LA based on one of those characteristics, that could get you in trouble for steering. So you want to avoid taking, again, those characteristics into consideration when you're looking at an application. If maybe the amenities are different, maybe the apartment size is different and more suitable, that's different than, trying to steer them in a different direction because you simply don't want them at that property for one of those characteristics. Another thing is having selective application criteria for one applicant and not another. The rental criteria and setting that is can be slightly tricky. There's various laws. There's new laws, there's potential laws, there's conflicting guidance one way or another. I'm not going to get into how to set up your leasing criteria. Maybe I'll do another video on that. But the typical criteria for leasing is you look at if they have sufficient income. Maybe you have, a requirement that they make 3 times the base rent. Maybe you have a credit score criteria. Maybe your criteria is that they have no evictions on their records or that they've never been named a defendant in an eviction. Maybe you have criteria about their criminal history. In California, there's rules about how you can take a criminal history into consideration for a rental application. Another main one, what is the other criteria? Oh, that you want verification of their rental history and of their employment. So all of those things, you have to apply them equally to all applicants. So if you're looking at each application, and let's say you run credit checks and criminal background checks and eviction checks as part of your policy, you have to run them for everybody. You can't just look at someone and go, I suspect they probably don't have it based on some sort of characteristic. You need to, if you're going to do those kinds of checks, those kind of background checks, you need to do them for all applicants across the board. You can't just pick and choose them. And predominantly, the concern is minorities like African Americans and Latinos will sometimes get selected to have these background checks, whereas maybe someone who's Caucasian might not get those checks. So that's why there's so many more protected classes in California. It's just, quite frankly, a more liberal state in general. But the whole idea basically around the application issues is that they want every tenant to be treated the same, or every applicant to be treated the same. So if you're going to run criminal checks on one person, you got to run on the other. That's going to be part of your leasing criteria. You have to apply it across the board. If your criteria is that this credit score has to be, 600 and plus, but you deny an otherwise qualified applicant who maybe meets the credit score, but is, one of the like maybe you don't like that they are gay, and then you accept someone who has a lower credit score but isn't gay. These are examples. There's no one size rule or application fits all. You just have to be mindful. If you have rental criteria, you apply to everybody equally. The last thing is, let's say you approve application, they move in, they're a tenant, you have to apply rules the same. So if you have house rules, if you have guidelines, you have to treat everybody the same. If one tenant violates the rule and gets a write-up, and then another tenant violates the rule, they should also get a write-up. So you don't get to pick and choose how you apply the lease and who you apply it to. Because again, that leaves room to be accused of discriminating based on one of these classes. When you misapply, or you, not misapply, but when you selectively apply the actual lease rules and regulations and terms to some tenants and not others. As like an overview of this, it's really important that when it takes like actions, whether it's through the leasing process or once the tenant is chosen and moved in. California itself is, and the federal government, but California having a broader group of protected individuals is hypercritical of landlords now more than ever. But taking those things into consideration are not being mindful, or another way to phrase it is you need to be more mindful of what you are doing as a landlord and how you are applying these things. And if you're going through this process and you don't know, it would be prudent to hire an attorney that is familiar with landlord-tenant law and the leasing laws, and discuss with them, the reasons or rationales for why you want to potentially deny an application or why you want to pursue enforcing a lease against a tenant. Typically, landlords kind of know or have a feeling that maybe what they're doing could get them in trouble, and they just want to be a little bit more prudent. So definitely that's really important. But the main thing to consider is that when you're leasing, you have to apply the rules, apply the criteria equally across the board. Failing to do that is one of the easiest ways that landlords can get themselves in trouble. And in California, there's a number of different ways in which landlords could get in trouble. There's local level, there's the Civil Rights Division in California that enforces the laws pertaining to equal housing. So just keep that in mind. If you found this video helpful, I have plenty of other property management videos on my channel in the playlist that you can watch that touches on things like this and similar related topics. Thank you.